And back in the day, when I was a true philosopher, before I became a tribute act, the philosopher I studied longest and hardest, the man who I still think of the second great passion of my life, was Benedict Spinoza, the great rationalist 17th century thinker. And this is my summary of his last two books, the last two parts of his Ethics. What are we, when all is said and done? What is this thing called humanity? Of what stuff are we made? I mean, when you get past all that noisy bit about the ego, you know the stuff, the bit that would say, just because I perceive a world, I have a right to own it, and the pride that accompanies it, that would have all of infinite creation bend at our convenience. What are we really? But part of the power of an infinite God, a God moreover uniquely constituted, because he exists only in us parts, and not in the whole in itself. But there's a fair chance I've lost most of you. So let me show you what might follow. We men, we're no master of our own thoughts, even less of our passions. Rather, they reverberate and dangle in us when we are in the grip of some external power. Sometimes small, but sometimes they can gather to be so great, they'll lodge in the mind as a stubborn affect. They'll tear at our nature, forcing us hither and thither, till the end we do not know which way to turn. The cause for such tumult is clear enough. There are those great events, forces in nature, or the mind of some scheming man that catches us up in their wake, as it was the will of Nero that drove the hand of Seneca, as it was the mind of the Prince of Orange that stirred up that mob. But there are other, subtler powers between us. Our mind is not the master of our own body, but rather its befuddled inhabitant. And so it is. As we share bodies, we share natures. We feel as each other feels. I feel then your joy in this envy. And you feel my pain in that pity. And backwards and forwards and backwards, refract and reflect, build and change our passions until they erupt upon our mind as a one true love. Or silent longing. Or sun-flashing fury. No, we men, we're not the masters of our own thoughts, nor that our consciousness notices or cares over much, any more than that bullet you're about to fire could claim anything other than it wanted to fly through my heart. But do you not see what follows? This is really why our morality is held so cheap. It's easy. I can sit here, and you and me, we can sit at our ease and set the world aright. What could be easier? We all know what is right, what is wrong. Everyone must follow what we say. And yet, do we not all, when we're caught up in some great gathering passion, shout with the agony and the ecstasy of the poet's Medea, when she shouts, I see and I approve the best, but I am going to do the worst. And in this, the very structure of time is surely our foe, for it is in the nature of the time that present joy burns in the mind more brightly than the knowledge of past and future woe. And so it must be so, else yesterday's stupidity becomes today's towering madness. And yet, my friends, the real danger here, it's never that you can't be moral. Oh no, it is that you can. That is, you can take your nature and you can twist it into some kind of monster who despises pleasure, hates everything noble, a pain-racked, guilt-racked, shame-racked, jealous thing. Do not trust any man, then, who would preach at you and tell you to feel guilty for your simple pleasure. At which point, do you not all feel it? Do not all our hearts miss a sudden joyous beat as we think of the world of untrammelled lust that opens before us, and so we rush headlong from one Scylla to a far darker Charybdis, one slavery to a blacker slavery. How then do we read this enigma? The enigma of being a human. Well, you must find what course you can, but I would offer you 3 words of wisdom, if I may. First, learn to let your joy challenge your nature. Free it from the present, free it from the love of people, places, drugs, time, memory, even from yourself. Let it be what it truly is. Secondly, remember, knowledge is most truly found in either learning to swim, when you enter that strange and watery world, a world you can't master, but only learn to respond to in time, or as it is to be found in that beloved memory of yours, the one you keep on going back to, the walk through London's dingy streets with a beloved friend, from which you pull out new hopes, dreams, beliefs, ideals, from which you unfurl your life. Finally, remember this. When you stand by the great roaring ocean and watch the sun go gold to red to purple, black and fall beneath the sea, that joy you feel in your heart, that is the very love, the very glory of God himself, and shares in his eternity. An eternity worth so much more than mere immortality of spirit. For in feeling it, you feel you are already treading that path as excellent as it is rare. For it is the path that leads to all true human freedom, my friend. I always say about Spinoza when I finish him, if ever you find your life going out of control, as sometimes happens, I always think a life spent studying Spinoza is not a life wasted.